Hey, Carter. I wanted to leave you some feedback on essay two. Overall, good work on this essay. You have a clear thesis statement. I do think you are mostly supporting your thesis quite well, using a blend of what we talked about in class, both personal example along with the positions. Um, from the essays that we read. And I also think that you're transitioning between your paragraphs pretty well, and your works cited page looks very professional. So great work there. There's just a few things here and there that I want to talk to you about in terms of revision. Should you be interested, I like the context that you're presenting here. That there are different definitions of education. I like that because not only does it create context for your definition, right? But you're also presenting the idea that there's not one definition, which sets us up for argument. Um, I think one thing that would improve this is if you more clearly identified who the stakeholders are. In other words, like you're being pretty broad and vague here. You say some opinions, others, many different professionals. It would be more helpful for the context if you were able to clearly identify who these stakeholders are. So instead of saying some opinions, say the opinions of whatever group, or who are the others that argue, right? Who typically has this position? That always helps with context. Um, I like what you're doing here in this paragraph. I like all of these ideas, but a lot of the ideas in this paragraph feel underdeveloped, meaning like you present an idea and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's great. But you walk away from it. So for example, you say a person can receive an education based on a video they watched online. For example, give us an example of that, right? Give us some examples to support that. And then the idea of talking to a professional. Give us another example of that. And like, how have you seen that occur individually? But also, like, how do we encourage that at the university, right? Oftentimes we bring in, or instructors will bring in working professionals in the discipline to talk to students, or that's the whole idea of the internship, that you are uh, talking with other professionals in that specific field, and you're actually doing that work as well. Be careful with cherry picking evidence here. So remember last unit when we were talking about writing summaries. When you write a summary, you want to state the author's full name and you want to state their article title. But then before you bring in the specific evidence, what you want to do first is objectively summarize the overall main idea of the article. Then you can transition into bringing in the specific evidence that you want to bring in, and that will prevent you from cherry picking. So what cherry picking essentially means is you're just taking small pieces uh of an article, right? So like one tiny quote to suit your purposes. And you've probably heard the word cherry picking in the public forum, particularly with politicians, right? Politicians accuse each other of doing that quite frequently, and politicians do cherry pick evidence all the time. But you don't want to do that yourself, right? So the best way to avoid it is set up the signal phrase and then objectively summarize the overarching main idea, and then you can pivot to the specific point that you want to make about that essay. And I would continue that for each thing that you want to uh, or sorry, with each which with each essay that you bring in. So you really focus on here, for example, on the minor point of the lesson, and that is a fine point to bring in, but without talking about Bambora's real purpose, which is how Miss Moore teaches Sylvia and the other children that they can actively fight against racial and class stereotypes. Right. So stereotypes exist, but they do not have to define the individual. Like, we have some choice in how we negotiate what society says we are, without, like, talking about that idea, or at least mentioning it. Again, what you're doing is cherry picking evidence, so the ideas will fall flat for the reader. Um, and so I would do that with each of these. Although I would agree, like, you're really hitting on this one you've handled quite well. So I think that you're fine here. So those are the points that I would focus on for revision. Your writing, as always, is very, very clear. So great work there. It's always very well organized. I think what the biggest issue here is that you're relying on really broad ideas instead of narrowing and focusing. Yeah, and that reminded me of something else. I really loved and appreciated that you brought in the examples that we worked on in class. And here was another moment where I like the work that you're doing, but again, it kind of feels like you're just skimming the surface. I wanted you to really get in there and help the reader understand what students gain from being in present in the classroom. I absolutely align with you, right? So when I use that example, I was thinking about how it's possible to get a degree, earn a degree, but not earn an education, right? Meaning that it's possible to pass all of your classes and be awarded a bachelor's in science, a bachelor's in art, but you really haven't done the deeper kind of thinking that the university wants you to experience, right? That it's not just about passing the classes, it's about transformation, right? Like Bereka suggests, that it's not to soothe us by saying, okay, you're ready to go out and face the world, but it's also to get you to really think about what you believe and why, and get you to challenge some of the beliefs that perhaps you walked into the university with. you know um so so I would like you to dig into those ideas as well if you're interested in revising this. But overall, it's a good paper. It just, just clarifying those ideas would make this stronger. All right, Carter. Excuse me, I stumbled over your name, Carter. I'll talk to you soon.